latecomer to Godhead by a neat turn of the wheel, as the true meaning and object of all past creation, and their conscious misery is set up as a perfection of the world's history. Such a point of view has accustomed the Germans to talk of a world process and justify their own time as its necessary result. Page 52, The Use and Abuse of History by Friedrich Nietzsche. And justify their own time as its necessary result. And it has put history in the place of other spiritual powers, art, and religion as the one sovereign, inasmuch as it is the idea realizing itself.
We might be the idea realizing itself.
The dialectic of the spirit of the nations.
Well, fuck nations. Let's just disband that shit. But as a planetary consciousness, as a universal cosmic consciousness, we all
have something to put on the table. As conscious living beings, we should have access to our own ethical and cosmic evolution as we build ourselves up.
History understood in the tribunal of the world. The tribunal, like in fucking Morrowind. History understood in this Hegelian way has been contemptuously called God's sojourn upon earth, though the God was first created by history.
History created God.
He, at any rate, became transparent and intelligible inside Hegelian schools. Well, first there was a bunch of different deities, and they were female, they were male, they were androgynous, third gender, agender. Deities at first weren't seen as like gods, you know. It's like, that's the whole thing with this terminology about God. It's like there are goddesses, there are fucking androgynous deities, and these could be viewed through the lens as like having just as much power as a quote-unquote God, and that's a monotheistic kind of concept, using God that way, but I digress.
God's sojourn upon the earth, though the God was first created by history. He,
once again he, it's a gendered thing, at any rate, became transparent and intelligible inside Hegelian skulls. Hegelian skulls. That's just like, 95% of people, like fucking, they just have like these bigoted opinions. It's like Hegelian skulls. I don't know that much about Hegel, so I probably shouldn't say that. And it's not true. A lot of people have altruistic values, but at the same time, they do espouse sometimes, like, targeting, like, vulnerable people and marginalized people who, it's a harmful practice, and a lot of people engage in it unknowingly, unwittingly, or even wittingly, and it's not okay. We should address ourselves on these things. And has risen through all the dialectically possible steps in her being up to the manifestation of the self, so that for Hegel, the highest and final stage of the world process came together in his own Berlin existence. He ought to have said that everything after him was merely to be regarded as the musical coda of the great historical rondo. Or rather, as simply superfluous. He has not said it, and thus he has implanted in a generation, leavened throughout by him, the worship of the power of history that turns practically every moment into a sheer gaping at success, into an idolatry of the actual, for which we have now discovered the characteristic phrase, to adapt ourselves to circumstances. You gotta meet shit at the base level. Honestly. It's like, that's fucking Nietzsche. I mean, it's like he was appropriated by Nazis. But at the same time, Nietzsche had some pretty egalitarian ideas. And it's pretty cool to like run across those. And I know I'm butchering this whole segment and just adding my own shit. But at the same time, I do appreciate like people writing this shit. It's pretty intense. Into an idolatry of the actual, for which we have now discovered the characteristic phrase, to adapt ourselves to circumstances. But the man who has once learned to crook the knee and bow the head before the power of history nods yes at last, like a Russian doll, to every power, whether it be a government or a public opinion, or a numerical majority, and his limbs move correctly as the power pulls the string. If each success has come by a rational necessity, and every event shows the victory of logic or the idea, then down on your knees quickly, and let every step in the ladder of success have its reverence. There are no more living mythologies, you say? Religions are at their last gasp? Look at the religion of power, of history, and the priests of the mythology of ideas with their scarred knees. Do not all the virtues follow in the train of the new faith? And shall we not call it unselfishness when the historical person lets themselves be turned into an objective mirror of all that is? Is it not magnanimity to renounce all power in heaven and earth? Okay, what is that shit? Renounce all power on heaven and earth. You don't have to renounce shit. Okay, you know, it exists by itself, and there's no power in fucking heaven. Heaven is just like a fucking invention. But the cosmos, you know, maybe that's what's meant by heaven, like the sky realm or something. To renounce all power in heaven and earth in order to adore the mere fact of power? Power is contagious. I will, like, you know, I agree with that. You know, power is contagious and it can be deadly. Extremely deadly. Is it not justice always to hold the balance of forces in your hand and observe which is the stronger and heavier? That's subject to human bias, but, and what a school of politeness is such a contemplation of the past. To take everything objectively, to be angry at nothing, to love nothing, to understand everything, makes one gentle and pliable. I don't know what that means. I think it's good to be gentle. Pliable, I mean, that applies to everyone. We're all fucking pliable. We're all being exploited for our labor and shit. Like, don't pretend you're not fucking pliable. Even if a person brought it up in this school could show themselves openly offended, one is just as pleased, knowing it is only meant in the artistic sense of ira et studium, knowing it is really sine ira et studio. What old-fashioned thoughts I have on such a combination of virtue and mythology. But they must out, however one may laugh at them. I would even say that history always teaches. It was once, and the mortality it ought not to be, or have been. So history becomes a compendium of actual immorality. How wrong would one be to regard history as a judge of this actual immorality? Morality is offended by the fact that a Raphael had to die at 36. Such a being ought not to die. What about the fucking kids just starving to death, dying of preventable diseases in third world countries that people don't give a shit about? That's the fucking first world is exploiting the shit out of. If you came to the help of history as the apologists of the actual, that's good. You would say he had spoken everything that was in him to speak. A longer life would only have enabled him to create a similar beauty and not a new beauty, and so on. Thus, you become an advocatus diaboli by setting up the fact, as your idol, whereas the fact is always dull, at all times, more like a calf than a god. I'll tell you, calves, they do have a precedent of being deities. What about the fucking, like, golden calf in, like, the Bible or some dumb shit like that? But, or in India, like how cows are viewed as sacred. There are tons of cow gods and fucking, like, hoofed mammal gods, so I don't know what the fuck Nietzsche is on about. Your apologies for history are helped by ignorance, for it is only because you do not know what a naturans like Raphael is that you are not on fire. You are not on fire because you do not know Raphael. That's what I'm getting from this so far. Oh no. I lost my page. Have a great night.